I came home and heard my son screaming, "Hurry up! We have 5 minutes before she gets back." My hands trembled. I flung the door open and couldn't believe I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. For 63 years, I had lived what I considered a blessed life. My late husband Robert and I had raised our son Michael in a modest home in suburban Ohio, watching him grow into what I thought was a kind, responsible man. After Robert passed 5 years ago, Michael and his wife Jennifer moved closer to me. Just 20 minutes away, they said, to help out and keep me company. I was grateful. Or at least, I thought I was. The first strange thing I noticed was 3 months ago. I had given Michael my credit card to pick up groceries while I was recovering from a bad flu. When the statement arrived, there were charges I didn't recognize: an expensive restaurant, an electronics store, nearly $800 I hadn't authorized. When I asked Michael about it, he laughed it off. "Oh, Mom, you must have forgotten. Remember when we all went to dinner that night? You insisted on treating us, but I hadn't left the house that week. I was too sick. I let it go. Maybe my memory was slipping, I told myself. I was getting older, after all." Then came the incidents with my mail. Letters from my bank started arriving opened, or not arriving at all. When I asked Jennifer about it, she often picked up my mail when I was out. She seemed surprised. "Opened? Mom, maybe the post office is having issues. You know how unreliable they are these days." Her smile was sweet, concerned even. But something in her eyes felt cold. The whispers started next. I would walk into a room and find Michael and Jennifer huddled together, their voices low and urgent. The moment they saw me, they would spring apart, faces brightening with exaggerated cheerfulness. "Hey, Mom, we were just talking about dinner plans." But I had heard my name. I was sure of it. Last Tuesday, I came home early from my book club. It had been canceled because Margaret was sick. I pulled into my driveway around 2 in the afternoon, expecting an empty, quiet house. But as I approached my front door, I heard something that made my blood run cold. "Faster! We have 5 minutes before she gets back. We need to get everything out right now." It was Michael's voice, sharp with panic, coming from inside my house. My hands began to shake as I fumbled with my keys. What were they doing in my home? Why did they sound so desperate, so guilty? I threw open the door and could not believe what I saw. My living room had been transformed into a staging area of sorts. Jennifer was standing by my antique writing desk, the one Robert had restored for our 30th anniversary, with several file folders in her hands. My file folders, the ones where I kept important documents, insurance papers, investment statements, the deed to my house. Michael was at my computer, frantically clicking the mouse, his face flushed and sweating. "Mom," Jennifer gasped, the folders slipping from her hands and scattering across the floor. "You're home early. What are you doing?" My voice came out as barely a whisper. I couldn't seem to find enough air in my lungs. Michael jumped up from the computer, his expression cycling rapidly through shock, fear, and then, most chilling of all, a forced calm. "Mom, hey, we were organizing some things for you. You mentioned last week that your filing system was a mess, remember?" I had mentioned no such thing. My filing system had been the same for 30 years and it worked perfectly fine. "Why did you say you needed to get everything out before I got back?" I asked, my voice steadier now, hardening. "What exactly are you taking out of my house?" Jennifer stepped forward, her hand reaching for my arm in a gesture that might have looked comforting to anyone else. But I saw the calculation in her eyes, the quick glance she exchanged with Michael. "Mom, you must have misheard. We weren't—" "I know what I heard. The words burst out of me, louder than I intended. I heard Michael screaming about having 5 minutes. "Don't you dare tell me I misheard." The room fell into terrible silence. In that moment, looking at my son's face, the way his jaw tightened, the way he couldn't quite meet my eyes, I realized something that made my stomach drop. This wasn't the first time. How many times had they been in my house when I wasn't home? How many of my papers had they gone through? How much had they already taken? What else had my own son stolen from me? After they left, making hurried excuses about a forgotten appointment, I locked the door behind them and leaned against it, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. For 10 minutes, I just stood there, trying to steady my breathing, trying to make sense of what I had witnessed. Then, I began to search my own home, like a detective investigating a crime scene. I started with the desk. The folders Jennifer had dropped were my financial records, bank statements from the last 6 months, my investment portfolio summary, the insurance policy Robert had left me. Nothing was missing as far as I could tell, but they had clearly been moved, sorted through. The pages had fingerprints on them, not mine. Some documents were out of order, placed back carelessly. My computer was next. I wasn't particularly tech-savvy, but Robert had taught me the basics before he died. I checked my browser history. Someone had accessed my online banking just this afternoon, minutes before I arrived home. They had viewed my savings account balance. They had looked at my recent transactions. The balance made my breath catch. $63,000. My life savings. The money Robert and I had carefully put away for decades. I opened my email, something I rarely did these days. There were confirmations for password reset requests I had never made, emails from my bank about authorized users being added to my accounts, dated 3 weeks ago. I had never authorized anyone. I had never even seen these emails before. Had they been deleting them? The credit card statement I had questioned months ago suddenly made horrifying sense. I pulled out my filing cabinet and went through every statement from the past 6 months. Restaurant charges, shopping sprees, cash withdrawals, thousands of dollars I had never spent. Nearly $12,000 in total. How had I not noticed? But I knew how. Michael always offered to help me with my bills. "You've got enough to worry about, Mom. Let me handle the paperwork." And I, trusting fool that I was, had let him. I sank onto my couch. The statements scattered around me like evidence of my own stupidity. My son, the baby I had nursed, the child I had comforted through nightmares, the young man I had put through college by working double shifts at the hospital, was stealing from me, and his wife was helping him. Fear washed over me in waves. I was 68 years old, living alone. They had keys to my house. They knew all my financial information. If they wanted to, they could drain my accounts, forge my signature, maybe even manipulate me into signing away my home. Who would believe me if I spoke up? Michael was charming, well-liked in the community. Jennifer volunteered at the church. I was just an elderly widow, possibly confused, possibly senile. Wasn't that what they were counting on? But underneath the fear, something else began to burn. Anger. Not the hot, explosive kind, but something colder, more focused. Robert used to say I had a spine of steel when I needed it. During his cancer treatments, I had navigated insurance companies, fought with hospital administrators, advocated for him when he was too weak to speak for himself. I had not been weak then. I would not be weak now. I needed proof. Real, undeniable proof. And I needed to protect what was mine before they could take any more. My first step was simple but crucial. I went to my bedroom and found the small, fireproof safe where I kept my most important documents. My birth certificate, Social Security card, Robert's death certificate, the original deed to the house. I checked the contents. Everything was still there, thank God. They hadn't found this yet. I took the safe and hid it in the back of my closet behind boxes of old clothes, then put a suitcase in front of it for good measure. Next, I called my bank. It was almost closing time, but I reached a representative named Susan, who listened patiently as I explained, carefully, calmly, that I needed to review who had access to my accounts. She put me on hold. The wait felt like hours. When she came back, her voice had changed, become more serious. Mrs. Patterson, I'm showing that your son, Michael Patterson, was added as a joint account holder on your savings account 3 weeks ago. Do you not recall authorizing this? No, I said, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. I did not authorize this. I need him removed immediately. I'll start the paperwork, Susan said. But ma'am, I have to tell you, there's been significant activity on this account in the past month. Large withdrawals. Are you aware? How much? I interrupted. The number she gave me made the room spin. $22,000. Gone. Withdrawn in increments just small enough not to trigger automatic alerts. My son had stolen $22,000 from my savings account. I now had a plan. I would document everything. I would protect what remained. And I would make sure Michael and Jennifer faced consequences for what they had done. But first, I needed evidence they couldn't deny. The next morning, I walked into the First National Bank with my shoulders back and my head high, dressed in my best navy suit, the one I had worn to Robert's funeral. I wanted to look competent, clear-minded, not like someone who could be dismissed as a confused old woman. I asked to speak with the branch manager. His name was Thomas Chen, a man in his early 40s with kind eyes and a firm handshake. I had done business with this bank for 37 years. They knew me. Mrs. Patterson, please have a seat, he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. Susan from our customer service team flagged your account. She said you had some concerns about unauthorized access? I told him everything. The credit card charges I hadn't made, the mail that went missing, coming home to find my son and his wife rifling through my financial documents, the password resets I never requested, the $22,000 withdrawn without my knowledge or permission. To his credit, Thomas Chen did not look skeptical. Instead, he looked increasingly alarmed. He pulled up my account on his computer, his expression darkening as he scrolled through the transaction history. Mrs. Patterson, I'm going to be frank with you. This looks like financial elder abuse, he said quietly. The pattern of behavior you're describing, family members gaining access to accounts, making unauthorized withdrawals, isolating you from your own financial information, these are classic warning signs. Hearing it said out loud, given an official name, made it real in a way it hadn't been before. Financial elder abuse. My son was abusing me. What can I do? I asked, hating how my voice shook. First, we remove him from your accounts immediately. All of them. I'll personally oversee this. Second, we change all your passwords and PINs. Third, we set up alerts for any transaction over $100. You'll get a text message and email immediately. Fourth, I strongly recommend you file a police report. What he's done is theft. It's illegal. The police? That meant making this public. That meant potentially pressing charges against my own son. Could I do that? But what choice did I have? If I did nothing, they would take everything. They had already proven that. I'll file a report, I said firmly. But I need more evidence first. I need to make sure they can't talk their way out of this. Thomas Chen nodded slowly. I understand. In the meantime, I'm going to prepare a full audit of your accounts for the past year. Every transaction, every access point, every change made. You'll have a complete paper trail. I left the bank 2 hours later with new account numbers, new passwords, and a thick folder of documentation. My hands were steadier now. I was taking action. I was fighting back. But I had underestimated how quickly Michael and Jennifer would notice. That evening, my phone rang. It was Michael, and his voice had an edge I had rarely heard before. "Mom, I tried to grab groceries for you like I do every Wednesday, but my card was declined. What's going on?" Of course. He had been using a debit card linked to my account, the card that no longer worked because I had closed that account. "I made some changes to my banking," I said carefully. "I decided I needed better oversight of my finances." The silence on the other end of the line was heavy, dangerous. "What kind of changes?" "That's my business, Michael." "Mom?" His voice shifted, became softer, more pleading. "Did someone say something to you? Are you upset about the other day? Because Jennifer and I were just trying to help organize—" "Don't lie to me." The words came out sharp as glass. "I know about the withdrawals, Michael. I know about the $22,000. Another silence, longer this time. When he spoke again, the pleading tone was gone, replaced by something colder. "I think we need to talk in person. Jennifer and I will come over tomorrow." "No." My heart was racing, but I kept my voice firm. "You will not come to my house. You will not let yourself in with your key because I'm having the locks changed tomorrow morning. If you want to talk, we can meet in a public place." "Mom, you're being irrational." I hung up. My hands were shaking again, but this time from adrenaline, not fear. I had drawn a line in the sand. There was no going back now. That night I barely slept. I kept my phone on the nightstand, half expecting them to show up at my door. But they didn't come. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The next afternoon, a locksmith changed all my locks. It cost $240, but it was worth every penny. I was the only one with keys now. Then I drove to the police station. The officer who took my report was a young woman named Detective Sarah Martinez. She listened to my story, took notes, examined the bank documents I brought with me. "Mrs. Patterson," she said when I finished, "I'm opening an investigation into financial exploitation. This is serious. Your son could face felony theft charges." I nodded. "I understand." "One more thing," Detective Martinez said, her eyes meeting mine. "Do you have somewhere safe to stay? Sometimes when family members realize they're being investigated, they escalate. They get desperate." The thought hadn't occurred to me. My own son, dangerous. But then I remembered the panic in his voice when I came home early, the cold calculation in Jennifer's eyes. People who had already stolen $34,000. What else might they be capable of? "I'll be careful," I promised. But careful might not be enough. Detective Martinez gave me practical advice. Document everything, don't meet them alone, install security cameras. I followed her instructions to the letter. Within 48 hours, I had a simple camera system installed at my front and back doors, the kind that recorded to the cloud and sent alerts to my phone. It cost $400, but my safety was priceless. I also made an appointment with an attorney named Margaret Friedman, who specialized in elder law. She was in her 50s, sharp-eyed, and no nonsense. When I showed her the bank statements and the police report, she didn't mince words. "Mrs. Patterson, you need to protect your assets immediately. If this goes to court, and it likely will, you need to make sure they can't claim any right to your property or finances. I recommend we draw up a new will, a power of attorney, that specifically excludes your son, and we should consider a restraining order if they continue to harass you." "A restraining order against my own son?" Her expression softened slightly. "I know this is painful, but he's stolen a significant amount of money from you. He may try to intimidate you into dropping the investigation. We need to be prepared." I signed the papers. New will, New power of attorney designating my longtime friend Carol as my agent. Explicit documentation that Michael and Jennifer had no claim to my estate. It felt like cutting off a limb, but it was necessary. Then came the retaliation. 3 days after I changed my locks, Jennifer showed up at my door. I saw her through the new camera feed on my phone before I even heard the doorbell. She was alone, dressed nicely, carrying what looked like a bakery box. She looked like she was coming for a pleasant visit, but I knew better. I opened the door but kept the chain lock engaged. "What do you want, Jennifer?" Her smile was strained. "Mom, I brought your favorite lemon cake from Anderson's bakery. I thought we could talk, clear up this misunderstanding." "There's no misunderstanding. You and Michael stole from me." The smile disappeared. "That's a terrible thing to say. We were helping you manage your finances because you were getting confused. We never stole anything. That money was for household expenses, things we bought for you. $1,200 at a steakhouse? $800 at an electronics store? That was for me?" Jennifer's face hardened. "You're being influenced by someone. Who's putting these ideas in your head? That detective? Some lawyer? They just want your money for themselves, Mom. They're manipulating you." The audacity of it took my breath away. She was actually trying to flip the script, to make me believe I was the one being manipulated. "Leave," I said quietly. "Now." "Michael is heartbroken," Jennifer continued, her voice taking on a pleading tone. "His own mother accusing him of theft, getting police involved, changing locks like he's some kind of criminal. Do you know how this looks? Do you know what people are saying about our family?" "I don't care what people are saying. I care that you stole $34,000 from me." Jennifer's mask finally cracked. Her eyes went cold. Her voice dropped to something barely above a whisper. "You're making a huge mistake, old woman. You think you can just cut us out? We know where you keep everything. We know all your passwords, your social security number, your mother's maiden name. We could make your life very difficult." It was a threat, a clear, undeniable threat. "This conversation is being recorded," I said, gesturing to the camera above my door. "And if you don't leave my property right now, I'm calling the police." For a moment, I thought she might actually attack me. Her face flushed red, her hands clenched into fists. But then she seemed to remember where she was, that she was being filmed. She turned on her heel and walked away, leaving the bakery box on my doorstep. I didn't touch it. I called Detective Martinez and sent her the video. That night, Michael called. His voice was shaking with rage. "How dare you threaten my wife? She was trying to make peace with you, and you treated her like a criminal." "She threatened me, Michael. She said you could make my life difficult. I have it on camera." "You're recording us now? Your own family?" He sounded genuinely shocked, as if he had the right to be offended. "Mom, this has gone too far. Drop the investigation, drop the charges, and we can forget this whole thing happened. We can go back to normal." "Normal?" I laughed, and it sounded bitter even to my own ears. "Normal was you stealing from me while I trusted you. I'm not going back to that." "Then you're choosing to destroy this family," Michael said, his voice turning icy. "Everything that happens from here is on you. Remember that." He hung up. I sat in my living room for a long time after that, the silence of the house pressing in around me. My whole body felt heavy with grief and exhaustion. This was my son, the boy I had raised. How had we come to this? Detective Martinez called the next day. Based on Jennifer's threat and the evidence I had provided, she recommended I file for a temporary restraining order. The court date was set for 2 weeks away. I needed those 2 weeks. I needed time to breathe, to gather my strength, to prepare for whatever came next. I stayed home mostly, asked Carol to do my grocery shopping, avoided places where I might run into Michael or Jennifer. I slept poorly, jumped at every sound, checked my security cameras obsessively. But But slowly, I began to feel something else beneath the fear: resolve, determination. I had started this fight, and I was going to see it through. They had taken my money. They had betrayed my trust. But they would not take my dignity or my future, not without one hell of a fight. On the 10th day of my self-imposed isolation, my doorbell rang at 9 in the morning. I checked my camera and saw someone unexpected. Michael's older cousin, David. He was 52, a high school principal, someone I had always considered reasonable and kind. He was alone, hands in his pockets, looking uncomfortable. I opened the door, keeping it chained. "David, Aunt Linda, I'm sorry to drop by unannounced. I was hoping we could talk for a few minutes. I'm not here to ambush you or take sides. I'm worried about everyone involved." Something in his tone seemed genuine. Against my better judgment, I let him in, but I kept my phone in my hand, recording app ready. We sat in the living room. David looked around at the house he'd visited dozens of times over the years, then met my eyes. "Michael called me last night. He was upset. He says you've accused him of stealing, that you've gotten lawyers and police involved. Aunt Linda, I have to ask, is this really about money, or is there something else going on? Are you feeling okay? Have you been confused lately?" So that was the angle they were taking. Paint me as mentally incompetent, senile, unable to manage my own affairs. "David, I appreciate your concern, but my mind is perfectly clear." I pulled out the folder I now kept on my coffee table, bank statements highlighted with unauthorized withdrawals, the police report, the attorney's documentation. Michael and Jennifer stole $34,000 from me. They added themselves to my bank accounts without my permission. They went through my house when I wasn't home, accessing my private financial information. This isn't confusion. This is theft. David's face went pale as he looked through the documents. Whatever Michael had told him, it clearly wasn't the whole truth. 34,000. Jesus. Aunt Linda, did you confront him about this? Yes. He denied it, then tried to justify it, then threatened me when I wouldn't back down. His wife came to my house and said they could make my life difficult because they have all my personal information. It's all documented. It's all real. David set down the papers, his hands shaking slightly. "I didn't know. He told me you were having memory problems, that you were accusing him of things that didn't make sense. He asked me to come talk to you, to convince you to see a doctor. Maybe consider letting him help manage your affairs more formally." "That's exactly what he wants," I said quietly. "If he can paint me as incompetent, he can get power of attorney, maybe even guardianship. Then he'd have legal access to everything I own." The horror on David's face told me he understood. "What do you need from me?" The question surprised me. "What?" "Your family, Aunt Linda. Uncle Robert was good to me when my dad died. You helped pay for my college textbooks when money was tight. I'm not going to let Michael do this to you. What do you need?" Tears stung my eyes. The first I'd allowed myself to cry through this whole ordeal. "I just need people to know I'm not crazy, that I'm not confused or senile or making things up." "You're the sharpest person I know," David said firmly, "and I'll testify to that in court if necessary." After David left, I felt something shift inside me. I wasn't alone in this. I had allies. That afternoon, I called Carol, my best friend for 40 years. I had been avoiding her, ashamed of what my son had done, afraid she would judge me for being foolish enough to trust him. But I needed support, and Carol had always been there for me. "Linda, where have you been?" she demanded when she answered. "I've been calling for days." I told her everything. When I finished, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. "That son of a bitch," Carol finally said, her voice tight with fury. "That absolute son of a bitch. I never liked Jennifer. Too slick, you know. Too perfect. But Michael? I thought he was better than this. So did I whispered. Okay, here's what's going to happen. I'm coming over tonight with dinner. We're going to go through every document, every piece of evidence you have. I'm going to help you organize it all for court. And then you and I are going to make a plan for how to handle the restraining order hearing. Carol arrived at 6 with lasagna, garlic bread, and a bottle of wine. We spread all my documentation across the dining room table and worked through it systematically. She helped me create a timeline of events, organized receipts and bank statements chronologically, made notes of every threat and every lie. You're building an airtight case, Carol said with satisfaction. They won't be able to talk their way out of this. Around 8 o'clock, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Jennifer. We need to talk before the court date. What you're doing is going to destroy Michael's reputation, his career. He could lose everything. Is that really what you want? To ruin your own son's life? We can make this go away quietly if you just drop the charges and give us access to the accounts again. It's the only way this ends well for everyone. I showed the text to Carol. She read it and snorted. She's trying to manipulate you. Classic guilt trip mixed with a bribe. Don't respond. I'm forwarding it to Detective Martinez, I said. It's another piece of evidence. I felt cold inside, but steady. Not angry, not afraid, just resolved. They thought they could break me down, make me feel guilty for protecting myself. They thought I would choose family loyalty over justice. They were wrong. I blocked the unknown number and poured myself another glass of wine. Carol raised her glass. To steel spines and stubborn women who don't back down. To standing up for yourself, I agreed, even when it costs everything. The next week passed quietly. Too quietly. Michael and Jennifer didn't call, didn't text, didn't show up. It felt like the eye of a hurricane. Temporary calm before the next storm hit. But I was ready for the storm now. I had documentation, witnesses, legal representation, and most importantly, I had clarity. I knew exactly who I was fighting and why. The restraining order hearing was in 3 days. I reviewed my testimony with Margaret Friedman, practiced staying calm under questioning, prepared myself for seeing Michael in court. I would face him. I would tell the truth, and I would not apologize for protecting myself. Let the storm come. I had weathered worse. The day before the restraining order hearing, they came together. I saw them on my security camera at 2 in the afternoon, Michael and Jennifer, walking up my driveway side by side. They looked different. Michael wore his good suit, the one he wore to job interviews and important meetings. Jennifer had on a conservative dress, minimal makeup, her hair pulled back neatly. They looked like people going to church. They looked respectable. They looked like they were playing a role. I considered not answering. But something told me I needed to face this, needed to see what their final play would be before we ended up in court. I opened the door but didn't invite them in. What do you want? Michael's eyes were red like he'd been crying. Mom, please, can we just talk? 5 minutes, I'm begging you. You can talk from where you're standing. Jennifer put her hand on Michael's arm, a gesture of support. But I noticed how her fingers dug in slightly, controlling. She spoke in a soft, wounded voice. Mrs. Patterson, we came to apologize. We realize how things must have looked to you, and we should have been more transparent about helping with your finances. Helping? I kept my voice level. Is that what you call stealing $34,000? Michael flinched. Mom, that's not... It's more complicated than that. Some of that money was for expenses we covered for you. The new roof you needed, remember? We paid for that. The furnace repair. Your property taxes when you were short that 1 quarter. It was a lie. I had paid for my own roof repair 2 years ago, had the receipt to prove it. My property taxes were auto-drafted from my account. But the way he said it, with such conviction, such wounded sincerity, If I hadn't known better, I might have doubted my own memory. That was what they had been counting on all along. I have receipts for all my expenses, I said. I've given them to my attorney. Your lies won't work anymore. Jennifer's expression flickered. Just for a second, the mask slipped, and I saw cold calculation underneath. But then she smiled sadly. I understand you're angry. You feel betrayed. But Michael is your only son, your only family. If you go through with this hearing tomorrow, if you get that restraining order, you'll be alone. Completely alone. Is that really what you want for your final years? No family around, no one to help you when you get sick, no one to care for you. There it was. The threat wrapped in concern. Abandon this fight or die alone. I'd rather be alone than be robbed, I said. Michael's facade finally cracked. His voice rose, shaking with anger. Robbed? We took care of you. After Dad died, who was there every week checking on you? Who helped you figure out your bills? Who made sure you weren't being scammed by contractors? We gave up our time, our energy, and helped yourselves to my money in return, I interrupted. Without asking, without permission. That's called theft, Michael. You owed us. The words burst out of him, raw and furious. Do you have any idea how much we've sacrificed? We moved to this shitty town to be near you. Jennifer gave up a job opportunity in Seattle because you needed family close by. We put our lives on hold for you, and you can't spare a few $1,000s to make it worth our while? There it was. The truth underneath all the lies. They felt entitled to my money. They felt I owed them for the basic decency of visiting their elderly mother. You moved here because your company transferred you, I said quietly. Jennifer never had a job offer in Seattle. I remember, because you complained about how hard it was to find work when you first got here. And I never asked you to put your lives on hold. If you resented helping me, you should have said so. Instead, you smiled to my face and stole from me behind my back. Jennifer's eyes turned to ice. You sanctimonious bitch. You sit in your paid-off house with your dead husband's life insurance money and act like you're some kind of martyr. That money should have been Michael's inheritance eventually anyway. We just accelerated the timeline. The honesty was almost refreshing. Finally, the masks were completely off. Get off my property, I said. If you're here when I close this door, I'm calling the police and having you arrested for trespassing. The restraining order hearing is tomorrow at 10 a.m. I'll see you in court. Michael stepped forward, his face flushed with rage. You'll regret this. I swear to God, you'll regret this. We'll fight you on everything, the will, the power of attorney, all of it. We'll drag this out for years. We'll make sure you spend every penny you have left on lawyers. And when you die, alone and bitter, you'll realize you destroyed your only family over money. No, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. You destroyed our family when you decided to steal from me. This is just me refusing to be a victim. I closed the door and locked it, then watched through the camera as they stood on my porch for a long moment. Jennifer was crying. Real tears this time, I thought. But tears of rage, not remorse. Michael kicked my flower pot, sending it tumbling down the steps and shattering on the walkway. Then they left. I stood in my entryway, shaking. My legs felt weak, so I sat down right there on the floor, my back against the door. They had shown me who they really were. Not confused or misguided, not desperate or struggling, just entitled and angry and willing to do whatever it took to get what they thought they deserved. The fear came then. Waves of it, cold and overwhelming. These were people who felt justified in their actions, who saw themselves as victims of my selfishness. What else might they do? What else might they feel entitled to? But underneath the fear, something else burned brighter. Determination? They wanted me to be afraid. They wanted me to back down, to choose peace over justice. They were counting on maternal guilt and loneliness to break my resolve. They had miscalculated. I pulled out my phone and called Detective Martinez, described what had just happened, sent her the security footage. Then I called Margaret Friedman and told her about their admission that they felt entitled to my money. "Perfect," Margaret said. "They just handed us our case on a silver platter. Get some rest tonight, Linda. Tomorrow we finish this." I didn't sleep much that night. But when morning came, I got up, put on my best suit, and prepared to face my son in court. I was ready. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, less dramatic. Pale wood paneling, fluorescent lights, a judge's bench that seemed too ordinary for the weight of what was about to happen. I sat next to Margaret Friedman at the petitioner's table, my hands folded calmly in my lap, though my heart was beating hard enough that I wondered if people could see it through my blouse. Michael and Jennifer sat across the aisle with their attorney, a nervous-looking young man who kept shuffling papers and whispering urgently to his clients. Jennifer's eyes were red and puffy. She'd clearly been crying, probably for effect. Michael stared straight ahead, his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle twitching. Judge Patricia Hanover entered, a woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She reviewed the petition briefly, then looked up at us. "This is a hearing for a restraining order petition filed by Linda Patterson against her son, Michael Patterson, and daughter-in-law, Jennifer Patterson. Mrs. Patterson, you may present your case." I stood. My voice was steady. "Your Honor, I'm requesting this restraining order because my son and his wife have engaged in a pattern of financial exploitation and intimidation against me. Over the past 6 months, they have stolen approximately $34,000 from my bank accounts, made threats against me when I discovered the theft, and attempted to manipulate me into dropping a criminal investigation." Michael's attorney stood. "Your Honor, the respondents categorically deny these allegations. Mr. Patterson has been helping his elderly mother manage her finances due to her increasing confusion. Any money withdrawn was for her legitimate expenses and care." "I have evidence," I interrupted calmly. Margaret handed me the folder, and I passed copies to the judge and to the other attorney. Bank statements showing unauthorized withdrawals. Documentation from First National Bank confirming that I never gave permission for my son to be added as a joint account holder. A police report for financial elder abuse. Security camera footage from 2 separate occasions showing the respondents threatening me when I confronted them about the theft. Judge Hanover reviewed the documents in silence. The courtroom was so quiet I could hear Jennifer's breathing across the aisle, quick and shallow, like a trapped animal. "Your Honor, if I may," their attorney said weakly, "these are family disputes over financial misunderstandings. Families argue about money. That doesn't warrant a restraining order." "Let's see the security footage," Judge Hanover said. Margaret played it on her laptop, positioned so the judge could see. First, the footage of Jennifer at my door. "We know where you keep everything. We know all your passwords. We could make your life very difficult." Her voice was crystal clear, her threat unmistakable. Then the footage from the day before the hearing. Michael kicking my flower pot, his face twisted with rage. "We'll fight you on everything. We'll make sure you spend every penny you have left on lawyers." When the footage ended, Judge Hanover looked directly at Michael and Jennifer. "Mr. Patterson, Mrs. Patterson, do you dispute that this is you in these videos?" Michael's attorney leaned over to confer with them. Jennifer was crying again, but this time it looked desperate, not performative. Michael's face had gone pale. "No, Your Honor, but the context," the attorney began. "The context," Judge Hanover said coldly, "appears to be that your client stole a substantial sum of money from the petitioner and then threatened her when she attempted to seek legal recourse. Mr. Patterson, Do you have any evidence that you had permission to withdraw $34,000 from your mother's accounts? She knew I was helping with her finances. She gave me access. Mrs. Patterson, did you give your son permission to add himself to your savings account and withdraw $22,000? The judge asked me directly. No, Your Honor, I did not. Did you give him permission to use your credit cards for personal expenses totaling $12,000? No, Your Honor. Judge Hanover looked at the bank documentation again. It says here that First National Bank has confirmed Mrs. Patterson did not authorize these account changes or withdrawals. Mr. Patterson, that's fraud. That's theft. You understand that, don't you? Michael's composure finally shattered. He stood up, ignoring his attorney's attempt to pull him back down. She's my mother. That money was going to be mine anyway when she died. We just needed it now. We have debts. We have expenses. She's living alone in that big house with more money than she'll ever spend, and we're struggling. It's not fair. The courtroom went silent. Jennifer grabbed Michael's arm, trying to get him to sit down, to shut up, but he was beyond controlling now. We took care of her, he continued, his voice rising. We visited. We helped. We pretended to give a damn about her boring stories and her constant neediness. We earned that money. Michael, stop talking, his attorney hissed. But it was too late. Judge Hanover's expression was carved from ice. Mr. Patterson, sit down, right now. He sat, finally realizing what he'd just done. The silence that followed was terrible. I've heard enough, Judge Hanover said. The restraining order is granted. Mr. and Mrs. Patterson, you are to have no contact with Linda Patterson. No phone calls, no texts, no emails, no third-party contact. You are not to come within 500 feet of her residence or any place she regularly frequents. This order is effective immediately and will remain in place for 3 years. Violation of this order will result in immediate arrest. She paused, then added, I'm also forwarding a copy of these proceedings to the district attorney's office. What I've heard today suggests criminal charges are warranted. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel fell with a sharp crack that seemed to split the air. Michael sat frozen, his face the color of ash. Jennifer was sobbing openly now, her carefully constructed image of the dutiful daughter-in-law completely destroyed. Their attorney was gathering papers with shaking hands, probably already regretting taking this case. I stood up slowly, feeling oddly light. It was over. I had won. Not because I wanted to destroy them, but because I had refused to be a victim. As I walked out of the courtroom, I heard Jennifer's voice behind me, sharp and venomous. I hope you're happy, you selfish old woman. I hope you die alone. I didn't turn around. I just kept walking, Margaret at my side, out into the bright afternoon sunshine. I was free. 3 weeks after the restraining order hearing, Detective Martinez called me at home. Mrs. Patterson, I wanted to give you an update. The district attorney has decided to press charges against your son and daughter-in-law. They're being charged with felony theft, financial exploitation of an elderly person, and fraud. Given the amount stolen and the evidence we have, the DA is confident about conviction. I sat down at my kitchen table absorbing the information. What happens now? They'll be arrested, arraigned, and given the option to plead out or go to trial. Given Michael's outburst in court and all the documented evidence, I'd guess their attorney will recommend a plea deal. But that's up to the DA and them. The arrests happened the following Tuesday. I didn't witness it. But Carol's daughter, who worked at the county courthouse, told me that Michael and Jennifer had been brought in handcuffs, photographed, fingerprinted, the whole process. They made bail, but their mugshots ended up in the local paper's crime blotter. In our small Ohio town, that was devastating. Margaret Friedman called me a few days later. Linda, Michael's attorney, reached out. They want to discuss a settlement. What kind of settlement? They'll plead guilty to reduced charges, misdemeanor theft instead of felony, if you agree to accept restitution and not pursue civil damages. They're offering to pay back the full $34,000 over 5 years, plus interest. And if I don't agree to the reduced charges? Margaret's voice was carefully neutral. Then they go to trial for felony theft. If convicted, Michael could face 2 to 5 years in prison. Jennifer, as an accomplice, could face similar charges. They'd have felony records. Michael would lose his job. He works in finance, correct? They'd never pass a background check in that field again. I thought about it for a long time. Did I want to send my son to prison? Did I want to destroy his career, his future, completely? Then I remembered Jennifer's voice. That money should have been Michael's inheritance anyway. We just accelerated the timeline. I remembered Michael saying I owed them. I remembered years of lies, manipulation, and theft. No deal, I said. They committed felonies. They should face felony consequences. The trial was set for 8 weeks later. Their attorney tried multiple times to get me to reconsider, painting me as a vindictive mother destroying her own son. But I stood firm. Margaret prepared our case meticulously. We never made it to trial. A week before the court date, Michael and Jennifer's attorney called again. They wanted to plead guilty to the original charges in exchange for sentencing recommendations. They would accept full restitution, 5 years probation, community service, and felony convictions on their records. They're desperate, Margaret explained. They know they'll lose at trial. This way they avoid prison time, but they still face serious consequences. The sentencing hearing was brief. Michael and Jennifer stood before Judge Hanover, who had also presided over the restraining order hearing, and formally pleaded guilty. The judge accepted the plea and handed down the sentence. Full restitution of $34,000 to be paid within 2 years. 300 hours of community service each. 5 years felony probation. And the felony convictions would remain on their permanent records. Judge Hanover looked directly at Michael. Mr. Patterson, you betrayed your mother's trust in the most fundamental way possible. You stole from her, lied to her, and then attempted to intimidate her into silence when she discovered your crimes. The sentence I'm handing down today is merciful compared to what you deserve. I hope you spend your probation reflecting on the kind of person you've become. Michael said nothing. Jennifer cried. I felt nothing but a deep, settled calm. After the hearing, Margaret walked me to my car. It's over, Linda. You won, completely. I didn't want to win, I said quietly. I wanted my son to be honest. I wanted my family to be trustworthy. But yes, it's over. The restitution started arriving the following month. Automatic bank transfers of $147 every 30 days. I put the money in a separate account. I didn't need it, didn't want to spend it. It felt tainted. Carol suggested I donate it. Give it to an organization that helps elder abuse victims. Turn something terrible into something good. That felt right. Every month when the restitution payment arrived, I donated an equal amount to the National Adult Protective Services Association. By the time the full amount was repaid, I would have helped fund resources for thousands of other elderly people facing similar exploitation. Michael's life unraveled exactly as expected. His finance company fired him. Felony theft conviction made him unemployable in that industry. Jennifer lost her job, too, by association. They had to sell their house to make the restitution payments. Carol heard through the grapevine that they'd moved 3 hours away to a cheaper town where no one knew their story. I felt no satisfaction in their downfall, but I felt no guilt either. They had made their choices. These were simply the consequences. My attorney fees, court costs, and security system installation had cost me nearly $8,000. But I considered it money well spent. I had protected myself. I had stood up for myself. I had refused to be a victim. And I had sent a clear message. Stealing from your elderly mother has consequences. Real, permanent, life-altering consequences. Justice, it turned out, wasn't always sweet. Sometimes it was just necessary. Инструкция. Новая жизнь героя счастливая. У антагонистов все из рук, вон плохо. 6 months after the sentencing, my life had transformed in ways I never expected. I reclaimed my home, repainted the living room a warm cream color, bought new furniture I actually liked, hung photographs from trips Robert and I had taken. The house that had felt violated became mine again. Carol came over almost every week. We'd cook dinner, watch old movies, play cards. David visited with his wife and daughters, good kids who actually enjoyed spending time with me once Michael and Jennifer were gone. I joined a book club at the library, started volunteering at the food bank, took up watercolor painting. I was terrible at it, but it made me happy. The women at book club became friends. When I told them what had happened with Michael, they didn't judge me. They shared their own stories of difficult family members, of choosing self-preservation over family loyalty. I slept better. My health improved. The headaches, stomach problems, and insomnia all faded. I had more energy, took walks in the park, started gentle yoga classes. Life wasn't perfect. I still had moments of grief, but they grew less frequent. I was genuinely, surprisingly happy. Carol told me she'd heard about Michael and Jennifer. After losing their jobs and selling their house, they'd moved 3 hours away to a small town. Michael was working night shifts at a warehouse, his finance career destroyed by the felony conviction. Jennifer was a cashier at a discount store. They lived in a 1-bedroom apartment, rode the bus after their car was repossessed, struggled to make restitution payments. Jennifer had filed for divorce. The stress and financial ruin destroyed their marriage. She blamed Michael. He blamed everyone but himself. The family had fractured. Most had sided with me once the facts came out. Michael's bitter emails burned the remaining bridges. Jennifer's parents had disowned her completely. The life they'd built on stolen money and lies had collapsed entirely. I didn't celebrate their downfall, but I didn't mourn it either. They'd been given every opportunity to make things right. They chose arrogance instead. Meanwhile, I woke up every morning in my paid-off house, made my coffee, and planned my day according to no one's needs but my own. I spent time with people who valued me, not my bank account. I had lost a son, but I had gained my freedom, my dignity, and my peace of mind. It was a fair trade. So that's my story. A mother who had to choose between family loyalty and self-preservation. I chose myself, and I don't regret it. Now, I ask you, what would you have done? Would you have pressed charges against your own child? Would you have let it go to keep the peace? There's no easy answer, is there? If you found this story meaningful, please subscribe and leave a comment sharing your thoughts. I have other stories about standing up for yourself when it matters most. Check out my channel. And remember, you deserve to be treated with respect, even by family, especially by family. Thank you for listening.